Welcome everyone to this General Assembly organized by the IMF. This event is organized for the different volunteer students that are here with us today in this auditorium, and also to those who are connected online with us. From 5 different universities, such as the International University of Rabat, the University Qadi Ayyad, University Mohammed VI, Al-Akhawain University, and also Mohammed V University. So without further ado, we will start with an opening speech from Mr. Mohammed Abdullawi, who is the Executive Vice President of the International University of Rabat.
Bien, bonjour d'abord à nos chers étudiants qui viennent de l'Université Mohammed V, de Qadi Ayyad, c'est ça, de l'Université internationale de Rabat. Merci d'être là. J'aurais aimé être à votre place, mais malheureusement, je suis trop vieux et à notre époque, il était difficile d'assister à des manifestations de cette importance. Donc j'espère que vous serez totalement sensibilisé sur le rôle que vous aurez à jouer lors des assises qui auront lieu à Marrakech dans quelques mois, je crois au mois d'octobre à Marrakech. Et c'est une très belle opportunité pour vous, toutes et tous, chers étudiants, de rencontrer le monde de la finance à travers cette rencontre de Marrakech. Je vous remercie, le directeur du FMI, d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. Pour vous rencontrer, pour échanger avec vous. Et je remercie le ministère des Finances, de l'économie et des finances marocain, Madame la ministre, et également mon ami Si Mohamed Kharmoudi, de la confiance qu'il nous témoigne en nous permettant de vous accueillir aujourd'hui au sein de notre auditorium, et également de la confiance qui nous font pour vous accompagner, vous, chers étudiants, dans un cycle de formation qui va se dérouler. On vous donnera plus de détails au moment voulu, mais pour pouvoir jouer tout votre rôle lors de cette manifestation à Marrakech, vous aurez à suivre au sein de l'université. Vous aurez à suivre au sein de l'université donc un cycle de formation qui se déroulera en anglais essentiellement pour vous permettre d'accueillir le monde de la finance. C'est quand même un très grand événement, hein. C'est un événement de dimension mondiale, internationale qu'accueille le Maroc. C'est aussi un signe de confiance dans les instances marocaines qui est témoigné à travers le FMI, à travers la Banque Mondiale et à travers toutes les instances financières internationales que d'héberger ce congrès au sein de Marrakech. Et en tout état de cause, je suis certain que ce sera un succès. Et nous, au sein de l'Université internationale de Rabat, nous ferons ce qu'il faut pour vous former, parce que vous serez, à votre niveau, les ambassadeurs du Maroc qui vont accueillir nos invités. Voilà. Donc je vous souhaite une belle conférence, un bel échange avec monsieur le directeur de la FMI qui va partager un certain nombre de points avec vous. Et je compte sur votre mobilisation pour que vous soyez toutes et tous présents lors des périodes de formation qui auront lieu. Donc on vous donnera les programmes au moment voulu. Merci beaucoup.
So thank you so much, Mr. Abdullawi, for this wonderful opening speech. So now we have the privilege of another opening speech from Mr. Al-Khammouchi, Mohammed Al-Khammouchi, who is the Director of General Administrative Affairs of the Ministry of Economy and Finance.
Bonjour tout le monde. Tout d'abord, je vous présente les excuses de Madame la ministre de l'Économie et des Finances, qui devait être parmi nous, mais pour un empêchement professionnel, donc je la remplace pour son discours. Monsieur le directeur du département Moyen, Orient, Asie centrale FMI, Monsieur le président de l'Université internationale de Rabat, Monsieur le vice-président de l'Université internationale de Rabat, chers étudiants volontaires, mesdames et messieurs. C'est pour moi un réel plaisir de prendre part aujourd'hui à cette rencontre avec les étudiants qui se sont portés volontaires pour contribuer à la réussite d'un événement important pour notre pays, qui est les Assemblées annuelles du groupe de la Banque Mondiale et du Fonds Monétaire International qui auront lieu à Marrakech en octobre 2023. Nous considérons que cet événement, marqué par le retour de ces assemblées en Afrique après 50 ans, représente une grande opportunité pour échanger sur les sujets d'intérêt pour le pays et notre continent et promouvoir les atouts touristiques et culturels du Royaume et mettre en avant les avancées réalisées par notre pays au cours de ces 2 dernières décennies sur le plan économique, social et sociétal, sous l'égide de Sa Majesté le Roi Mohammed VI, que Dieu l'assiste. Permettez-moi à cette occasion de présenter mes sincères félicitations aux 500 étudiants présents avec nous aujourd'hui ou ceux qui nous suivent à distance pour avoir réussi toutes les étapes de sélection parmi les 850 candidatures reçues par le comité d'organisation et qui ont conduit à leur intégration dans le vivier des volontaires pour les assemblées annuelles des 2 institutions en octobre 2023. Votre engagement est essentiel pour faire des assemblées annuelles un succès et nous vous en remercions sincèrement. Nous sommes convaincus que grâce à votre dévouement, nous serons en mesure de réaliser une manifestation mémorable qui laissera une impression positive sur l'image de notre pays. Le choix du Comité national de faire appel à nos jeunes étudiants est sans nul doute la manifestation de la confiance que nous accordons à la jeunesse de ce pays et notre conscience du rôle important que jouent les activités parascolaires dans leur développement et leur enrichissement. Je tiens à cette occasion à remercier, au nom du ministère de l'Économie et des Finances, à remercier l'Université internationale de Rabat qui nous accueille aujourd'hui, l'Université Mohammed V, l'Université Qadi Iyad, l'Université Al-Akhawain et l'Université Mohammed VI Polytechnique pour leurs engagements et l'accompagnement qu'ils ont bien voulu assurer pour leurs étudiants volontaires. Chers étudiants, cet événement s'inscrit dans le cadre d'une série de rencontres avec les responsables de la Banque Mondiale et de FMI, de sessions de formation et de visites sur le terrain qui seront organisées au cours des mois qui nous séparent des assemblées au profit des étudiants volontaires pour leur permettre d'assurer leur rôle dans les meilleures conditions. Nous démarrons aujourd'hui avec cet événement intéressant avec l'intervention de M. Jihad Azour, directeur du département Moyen, Orient et Asie centrale au FMI, qui a bien voulu être présent avec nous pour contribuer à cette expérience unique avec nos étudiants dans le cadre de cette route vers Marrakech. En vous souhaitant un échange fructueux, une expérience enrichissante durant vos activités. Merci beaucoup.
So thank you so much, Mr. Khamouti, for this opening speech. Now I would like to invite also Mr. Jihad Azour, who is the Director of the Middle East and Central Asia Department at the International Monetary Fund, to talk about the role and the mission of the IMF.
Bonjour tout le monde. Ravi d'être parmi vous. C'est peut-être ma 3e fois ici dans cet amphi et c'est toujours un plaisir de voir toute cette jeunesse multilangue, très intéressée. Je me souviens la dernière fois, j'étais avec Kristalina ici. La qualité du dialogue et des discussions, c'était quelques semaines avant la crise Covid. Je pense que c'était notre dernier voyage à l'étranger qui était ici à Rabat, après une visite à Marrakech. Et donc, c'était un moment pour moi très intéressant. Je voudrais commencer aussi par vous remercier, Monsieur le Vice-président, pour l'accueil et aussi pour le partenariat. Le partenariat qui regroupe plusieurs universités au Maroc qui vont travailler avec nous pour la préparation d'un événement très important pour, pas seulement pour le Maroc, pour la région et pour l'économie mondiale. J'aurai l'opportunité de vous donner un peu d'aperçu sur cet événement. Je voudrais aussi remercier le ministère des Finances et, à travers le ministère des Finances, l'ensemble des autorités marocaines avec qui on travaille en partenariat, et on apprécie à la fois le professionnalisme, l'esprit d'accueil et aussi l'opportunité d'avoir ici, dans ce pays qui est un carrefour des civilisations, un pays qui ressemble un peu au monde, avec plusieurs cultures, la possibilité d'échanger sur des questions d'une importance capitale pour notre avenir, pour votre avenir. Et j'espère qu'à travers cette présentation sur le Fonds monétaire, avec qui vous allez travailler pour la préparation des réunions annuelles, que dans quelques années, je verrai quelques-uns parmi vous faire partie du staff du Fonds monétaire. Et donc j'espère que ce moment va vous amener aussi à vous intéresser à une carrière dans nos institutions, représenter le Maroc dans les instances économiques et financières mondiales. J'ai une petite présentation pour vous donner un peu d'aperçu. Je sais que vous êtes déjà familier avec le fonds, ce que le fonds fait, mais rapidement, un peu un aperçu sur le rôle du fonds, la relation entre le fonds et la région, et bien sûr avec le Maroc, mais aussi c'est quoi les réunions annuelles, quelle est leur importance, et quels sont les grands thèmes sur lesquels on va travailler cette année dans le cadre de ces réunions. I was asked to speak in English, and therefore I will speak in English because the students wanted me to go over this presentation in English. Very quickly, what is the fund? The fund has a mission. It was created 80 years ago to be in charge of provide, through the role of the fund, as an institution, become the guardian of the global financial stability, especially that this came after a period between the First and the Second World War, where the global economy suffered from high inflation, from lack of international cooperation. And therefore, the role of the fund is to be the guardian and to preserve global financial stability, and we see this at several occasions, including during crises. It's a funded institution, i.e. it's an institution that is owned by the members. Currently, there is 190 countries who own the fund and are, in fact, the institution that the fund is somehow plays the role of their central bank. It focuses on economic stability, especially on macroeconomic issues, and has around 3,000 employees. Compared to other institutions, it's a small institution. For example, compared to the World Bank, we are 1/5 of the size of the World Bank. How we are organized. In terms of governance, we have a board of governors, 190 countries represented, that they meet at least once a year, and they discuss about the main priorities for the global economic stability. We also have an institution called the IMFC, International Monetary and Financial Committee, that has 24 members and meets twice a year, one during the spring meeting and another one during the annual meetings. In October, it will take place in Marrakesh. And usually, this looks at the overall stability and situation of the global economy and discusses the issues that are pertinent for the global economy. In the governance also, we have a board of directors that is on-site, i.e. that is part of the fund, 24 members representing 190 countries, and they meet 3 days a week. What the fund does. The first mission of the fund, it's the policy advice and the surveillance. All countries, from the largest economy to the smallest economy, they go through the same process of surveillance, whereby the fund, on annual basis, like a doctor looks into the health situation of each country and assess the current economic and financial situation. In addition to that, the fund provides policy advice. In addition to the surveillance on several topics and several issues that are pertinent to economic policies, the fund provides advice through bilateral and also through regional and multilateral. We have what we call the flagship reports. One of them is on the state of the economic situation, and the other one that is more focused on the financial stability worldwide. In addition to that, for each region, we have also the same type of analysis in order to assess the stability of the economy and the main economic challenges. The fund also provides financing. It's what we call the lender of last resort, but also provides financing to countries in order to accompany their reform program. The funding capacity of the fund exceeds $1 trillion, and those resources are deployed both for certain type of events, like for example, when the COVID crisis hit, the fund provided in rapid facilities more than $100 billion in less than a year. And last year, we provided $650 billion of what we call special drawing rights in order to provide liquidity to countries. In addition to that, we have programs ranging from financing recoveries to precautionary lines, like, for example, what Morocco has, is something that provides kind of an insurance without the necessity to disperse it. The third function that is also now gaining more momentum is capacity development. We provide support for central banks, ministries of finance, as well as also other institutions in their reform journey by providing expertise, by providing technical assistance. This is what the fund does. What the fund is doing for the region. The fund is an important partner. It's a strategic partner to the region, to the Middle East and North Africa region. We have provided $25 billion of financing. Recently, several countries benefited from our programs: Egypt, Morocco recently, and Mauritania. We have also distributed $42 billion of special drawing rights in 2022. And we provide an extensive work in terms of capacity developments. We have 2 centers that are covering the region, one in Kuwait that provides training, and one called Middle East and Technical Assistance Center based in Beirut. And we will be having a 3rd center that will be based in Saudi, in Riyadh, to provide additional support programs to countries in the region. More recently, the fund has been engaged in helping countries to address climate issues, and we have a new trust fund that will be dedicated to that. It's something new because we consider that climate issues are becoming macro-critical. Morocco is one of the countries where we are very proud of our partnership. We were able to, and we are committed to help Morocco over the last decade for the various reform programs that Morocco introduced. Recently, we provided a new line of precautionary line of $5 billion. This precautionary line, in fact, reward the efforts that Morocco have implemented over the last decades in terms of reform. It's a seal of approval of the policies and the stability that Morocco was able to maintain during the successive shocks and crises over the last few years. This line is a precautionary line. Whenever the authorities decide to draw on it, they can, but it could remain only a precautionary line that provides additional assurance. Let me give you a quick highlight on the annual meetings, why those annual meetings are important, and why we really look forward this year to have something special coming out of those annual meetings. Well, first of all, those annual meetings are the opportunities to bring the economic and financial decision makers of the world. The 190 countries who are members of the fund will be here in Marrakesh. More than 10,000 CEO or leader of the international financial institutions, both private and public, as well as also key players in the asset management industry, in the financial industry, will be here. We will have also the crème de la crème of the international experts on economic and financial issues. and the international financial and economic media will be here in Marrakesh in October. Therefore, the who's who in finance, the trillions of assets under management, the largest financial institutions, all the public decision makers will convene in Marrakesh. It's an important one. It's an important meeting. And this meeting is this year important because, as it was said earlier, this is the first meeting after 50 years in Africa, and the first time since 2003 in the region after Dubai. Therefore, it's an important event. It comes at also an important moment for the global economy. After successive shocks, COVID, the war in Ukraine, the increase in inflation, there are a certain number of key issues that will be debated, from how to preserve global financial stability, how to address issues of inclusion, how to restore growth, and also how to address issues related to the fragmentation that we see geopolitically. Therefore, this year, the leaders of the world will debate in Marrakesh on key issues that will shape the future of the global economy. And I don't have better place for that than Morocco. Why? Because Morocco has this culture of being a crossroad between Africa, Europe, Middle East, a culture that has also the capacity to be diverse and accept diversity in a world that needs more and more diversity, and it's a country of a dialogue. And this is, I think, the value that we seek to achieve during those annual meetings. On the road to Marrakesh, there will be several steps. We only, as an institution, we will have more than 40 events from now until October. Many of them will happen in Morocco, but others will happen in Africa and also in other places. Several members of the management of the fund are visited and will be visiting Morocco in the next few months. Thanks to the generosity of the Moroccan authorities, we know that they are very welcoming. Our managing director visited Morocco and will be visiting Morocco in June. And also the deputy managing directors, all of them are expected to visit to have certain number of activities in Morocco on the road to Marrakesh. We are also working hand by hand with the authorities because Morocco has its own agenda in terms of analytical work, in terms of policy discussions, and we have certain number of joint activities that we will do together. We also are partnering with the economic community, with the think tanks, universities, and we look forward to have on the road to Marrakesh the opportunity to meet and discuss around some of the key issues that will be debated. Three main themes. The first one is rebuilding macroeconomic resilience. Why? Because the last 40 years were years of successive shocks that have eroded the stability worldwide and require that we rethink collectively on what needs to be done in order to preserve macroeconomic stability. And there are certain number of events that will take place in preparation of the discussion in the annual meetings. And the way we want to do it is use those discussions in order to weave those ideas into the debate during the annual meetings. The second one is structural transformation. We are at crossroad. Technology is changing and changing very fast our way of life. There are certain number of key issues like climate issues that will change and reshape our future, and we need to be at the forefront of those. We need to allow countries in our part of the world to be able also to accelerate their transformation at a time where resources are limited and we are in a shock-prone economies globally. Securing structural transformation is very important because this is what gives hope to the young generation. And our mandate is not only to preserve stability, but also to help in an inclusive and transformative recovery. The third dimension this year that is more important than ever, we need to reduce the barriers that are being now erected. The economy benefited from global cooperation, especially developing countries. over the last 3 decades, the number of poor in the world was divided by half because of that. The amount of investment in technologies, in transformation that took place in the South has been multiplied, and therefore the Global South and the capacity of the Global South to be an important player need to be preserved. And there are a certain number of issues that we need collectively to address. Addressing the debt problem requires global cooperation. Allowing countries to benefit from investment for their economic transformation is also the responsibility of the global community. Therefore, we want this dialogue to help us converge, not diverge, to fight fragmentations, not to extend, I would say, this trend that is reducing the capacity of countries in the South to benefit from the global public good. Therefore, this will be also a third priority, and this is something that we hope at the end of the annual meetings, something will come, a kind of a declaration, a kind of a commitment to preserve those values. There is one topic that is very important to us. Personally, I have been working on this with my colleagues over the last few years. We had in 2018 an important event in Marrakesh around that. The question of inclusion is an important issue for us. Our region is still facing some challenges in terms of creating enough jobs. We are facing a situation where unemployment is still high, and it's growing, and the COVID crisis did not help. Women's participation is still relatively low compared to other parts of the world, compared to the average emerging economies. We are still far behind our potential. If we only bridge half of what other emerging markets have achieved, an additional $1 trillion of growth will be created in 10 years. We need for that also to increase our regional cooperation. We are in a country with common culture, with a lot of values in common, yet in terms of cooperation, in terms of exchange, we are among the lowest, I would say, in this part of the world, among the lowest of the world. And I don't see a reason why we cannot address this. Reducing those barriers will create on average 1% additional of growth per year and millions of jobs. Therefore, it's very important to focus on the challenges that we are facing, including also how we provide social protection, how we increase inclusion of the youth in the market, and how we allow the private sector to grow and to create jobs. We are going to together discuss the challenges that we are facing and also highlight certain policy priorities. We want to use the annual meetings also for that, for the international community to help, to provide hope, and also to put the inclusion on the radar also of investors by working on different approach in terms of public-private partnership, social protection, fiscal policies, the role of women in the economy, investment, startups. All these issues will be debated during and on the road to Marrakesh to the annual meetings. The engagement with you is critical. Why? Because you are the future, and because this is the wealth of our nations. 2/3 of the population is below 30. There are a certain number of priorities that need to take into consideration what are your aspirations. And we are going to have regional dialogue. In all the countries in the region, we will discuss issues related to what are your priorities for the years to come, how we can make your inclusion in the economy better. Therefore, we will consult with you and with other universities in the region in order to come up with your priorities. We want your priorities to be reflected in the discussion during the annual meetings, you and your colleagues from different countries. We are going to have, during the annual meeting, a fellowship whereby we have certain number of students like you who will be invited to participate in the debates, including with our managing director. And this is something that we want to emphasize, that the annual meetings this year will provide a voice to the youth and will allow through social media, as well as also through your presence, you reflecting or representing the community of the youth of the region, to have your voice and your participation be an important contribution to the annual meetings this year. Those are our aspirations, and in order to succeed, we need you. We need your help. Thank you very much for your interest. We need also that you look at this as an important event in your career, in your life, and as an important moment for your country. This is a moment where you will be exposed to issues that will shape the future of the world. You will be also representing your country, representing the region, and showing what Morocco can provide in terms of talents. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Azour, for this wonderful presentation. As we have seen, Mr. Azour talks about how much money, concern, and efforts the IMF puts in place to tackle different global economic problems in this world. That is why Marrakesh is the host city of the World Bank and the IMF for the 2023 annual meetings, because as Mr. Azour said, Morocco is a country of diversity, inclusion, and also dialogue. And you guys also know that we are the future and we are the wealth of the future generations. So now we are going to move to questions from you students here with us today. So I think we will have the first question from the person over there.
It's working. Okay. So good evening, everybody. I hope you all having fun. So I'll start with a small presentation. So I'm Nada Boutaher from Al Akhawain University. I'm majoring in artificial intelligence and minor in finance. So I'm honored to be with you in this great assembly and also representing my beloved university. So my question is the following. How is the IMF adapting to the change in our global landscape, and such as the emergence of new economic powers and shifts in government structures? And also, what are the implications of this change for the fund's operations and role? Thank you.
You want me to answer the questions? Yes. Well, thank you very much. You're asking very important questions. I hope that you will not take my job in the future through artificial intelligence. Well, the fund has clear mandate, which is to preserve economic stability and also to preserve the stability of the international financial system. And the fund has adjusted to the various evolutions that we saw since its creation in 1944. Until 1973, the whole monetary system was based on a certain number of rules that have changed. We were in the gold standard, etc., and therefore things have changed. We had to adapt and adjust to that. We had to adjust in the 80s with the first debt crises that took place in the developing world, and we had to develop certain number of instruments, mechanisms for that. In 1989, a large number of new members joined the fund after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and we had also to adjust to that. The globalization of the financial markets that has evolved and led to the 2008 financial crisis was also one step or one moment where we had to adjust. COVID crisis and so on. Therefore, the institution is anchored into its article of agreement that defines the mandate, but it's an evolving institution. And we keep changing while we are preserving, I would say, the direction of our role and our mission. Of course, the emergence of new economic power requires also globally to change the pattern of dialogue. And this is where, for example, the G20 became an important part of the the global coordination, and we as an institution, we cater for that, and so on. Therefore, of course, this is part of our mandate to be as global as possible and to help countries evolve and also to foster regional and international cooperation. There is an impact, of course. There are adjustments that are needed always, and this is part of our daily question, how the fund should remain relevant to the members. And this is why during the annual meetings we will discuss international cooperation, because we are worried about the risk of fragmentation, and we want to make sure that what has been achieved over the years is preserved. There are a certain number of issues that cannot be addressed by country. Take, for example, the example of highly indebted countries. We need global solidarity to help those. And therefore, it's very important to preserve this international dialogue. Our work is also evolving. We're adopting new technologies, and artificial intelligence will be one that will shape our work as an institution. There are new topics that we are working on. Climate is something that is new to us. But again, we need to evolve with the world in order to be able to serve the world in the best way.
Now we'll move on to the second question, to the lady over there in black.
Hello, everyone. I am delighted and grateful for this opportunity that allowed me to be among you today and to be a representative of my university. I am Roa Abul Majd, student at Al Akhawain University, majoring in business administration with a double concentration in both finance and logistics. So my question for you, Mr. Azour, is can you give us a vision of what you hope the global economy would look like in 50 years? And what are the steps needed in order to achieve that vision? Thank you.
Questions are getting more and more challenging. Well, it's very easy to answer this question because not very easy, because you will be here to judge if things or the way we see the global economy 50 years from now will materialize or not. I think the way I would look at this question is, what are the structuring trends that will shape our future? And of course, some of them are known, some of them will emerge. Demography is one that is known. The use of energy and the existing framework around energy is something that we also know, that it will be gradually depleted, replaced by renewable energy. The question of the role of technology and the future of work is now becoming more and more something that we need to internalize in terms of our policy making. The importance of maintaining the flow of capital, knowledge, technology, and people to create additional value to the world, also this is something that we need to preserve. The increased role of new actors in the economy is also something that will grow, including the corporate actors that are, in certain cases, are stronger than nations. That technology and the new ways of communicating, the fact that the transfer of knowledge and access to information is becoming much more available and at a very low cost, those elements will shape the future of the world economy. What I think we should not do is we should not erect new walls. And those walls, not necessarily physical. Walls is to limit the transfer of knowledge and information. walls in order to not, or to reduce the way we can collectively work to create more values. Therefore, I think you have the fundamentals, which is when you have the right policies, always will generate a good income. Stability is the first step toward prosperity. Vision and direction is very important. Inclusion in both decision-making and also in terms of chartering the future. Allowing talent to materialize in terms of achievements. And this is where the role of finance is and should be. And provide initiative or opportunities for initiatives to materialize. And this is why we think the private sector has a role to play in that. The importance of stability, and this is why the role of regulators is also very important. Therefore, in 50 years, the world definitely will be different, but fundamentally, we as human beings, we will remain motivated by the same issues, facing the same challenges, and therefore, everything that I see in the future, it should be centered around people. And I think this is where we need, even with the fact that we are dematerializing more and more our world, is how to make all of this serving the people, the human. And I think this is anything that is human-centric is the right way to think and charter the future.
So now we'll move on to the third question.
So hello everyone, and thank you for your presence here today. Firstly, I wanted to thank you, dear directors, for your presence here today also, and for this amazing opportunity. So I am Hiba El-Hatimi, a second year IPM student majoring in the marketing. So my question today is, how can the IMF help developing countries with their sustainable development goals? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hiba. This is an important issue. One institution cannot do it. It's a coordinated role. And this is why we and other institutions, UN agencies, World Bank and others, we are working together in order to achieve those goals. We have a mandate which has to do with the overall economic stability. We have another mandate is to measure for a certain number of those goals, what is the distance to achieve those, especially for countries who cannot achieve those goals without additional support, and to focus on that. Recently, we have measured the distance to achieve those SDGs and the way to move forward. We have incorporated further in our policy recommendations and even the design of our programs how to achieve those SDGs, at least those who are in nature more economic and financial. The importance of the SDGs is to allow all countries to access to opportunities, and this is part of our inclusion strategy. It's for countries and communities, and also is collectively to design instruments for that. One of those instruments where we believe our now role is to expand is we recognize that climate is becoming an important differentiating factor. Climate issues are increasing vulnerabilities, pushing people into more informality, delocalizing people, and therefore it's an important element in chartering our future. In the next 50 years, something that I know from now, that we will invest trillions in climate. And therefore, we need to make sure that while we are investing those trillions, economic stability is there. We are mobilizing additional support from the private sector. And this is something that is important to us. Of course, we are a piece in the puzzle. We're not the only institution that has to deal with those issues, and we recognize our limitation, but also we do not shy away from our responsibility in addressing those issues.
So thank you so much for your response. Now I'll move on to the fourth question to the Mr.
I would like first to thank all of you for this opportunity. I would like to thank also Mr. Azour for his presence and his really interesting presentation. I am Borada Mohamed Sami. I'm an international relations student on the Faculty of Governance of Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. And I would like to ask you, sir, about the IMF stance for debt relief for developing countries in general, and especially in your departments of Middle East and Central Asia. And I would like to know what about the debt restructuration, about how it can be well managed and how it can be successful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. This is an important question that is currently actively debated, because debt is now, with the successive shock, has become, in certain cases, a huge burden on economies to service and to maintain access to financing. We recognize that also there is change in the players in the debt market, and for that reason, during the spring meetings, we have convened for a debt forum that has also brought in new actors that are very important: private sector, private financial sector, also the bilaterals, because when you look at the patterns of debt, what we call the Paris Club used to regroup the majority of the financing, especially to low-income countries. This has shifted. Now we have new bilateral actors like China, where the role is more important, and therefore further coordination is needed. And this is the reason for the creation of the Debt Forum. Prior to that, in 2020, with the COVID crisis, a mechanism was created to help low-income countries deal with the situation of excessive indebtedness. And there is a framework called the DSSI to help those countries. We're exploring now how to extend it beyond only the low-income country to middle-income emerging economies who face debt issues. Solving a debt problem is a painful exercise, especially that also the nature of the debt has moved or changed, and part of the debt is held locally, which means addressing any debt situation may have a negative impact on the internal economic and social stability. The fund, the World Bank, and other institutions are working on developing new mechanisms, building on the experience that we have accumulated over decades and more recently, in order to develop frameworks whereby we can help countries address large debt issues that should not prevent their ability to provide the basic services and support to their population and not hinder their growth and their recovery. But it's definitely one of the main issues that in this annual meetings we will discuss and debate, because already this is an issue that we have started discussing it. When it comes to the region, also we have during the spring meetings convened a session, closed-door session, between different stakeholders. What is different in the region is you have more bilateral financing than in other parts of the world. Give you an example, the GCC provided over the last 5 years more than $50 billion of bilateral financing. And now they are exploring opportunities of shifting flows from debt to investment. There are certain number of challenges that are more pertinent to our part of the world, and we have achieved recently 2 important debt relief situation, and one is for Somalia that we hope by the end of the year we will complete the whole exercise of debt relief.
So thank you so much once again. We'll move on to the 5th question to Mr. over there.
Good evening, Mr. Azour. My name is Issa Khishadi. I'm a 3rd-year student at Rabat Business School, UIR. So my question is as the following: how the EMF help countries to improve their financial and economical resilience in response to external shocks, for example, COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is definitely one of the key issues that we deal with since 2020, and we keep working on. Countries are different, and therefore it's very challenging to draw, I would say, lessons that can be applicable for all countries at the same time. What we saw recently is, despite the recovery in 2021-22, three important issues are limiting the capacity to recover, and they need further support from us and others. One, we saw an erosion of social stability because during COVID, the informality did not help to provide the informal protection, but the useful protection for certain categories. At the contrary, in this crisis, informality, in fact, played against inclusion. Therefore, we have an important issue that has to be addressed that came because of COVID. The second issue is inflation, especially the nature of inflation, which is headline inflation, inflation coming from the price of basic food, commodity, etc., that socially affects more the low income and I would say the middle income people. Three is unemployment went up across the board. And this is an issue that is becoming more urgent in certain countries in the region. The good news is for Morocco, you were able to reduce the level of unemployment after 2021, 22. Now in 23, we expect unemployment to go down, but in other countries it's still very sticky, especially at the youth level. You add to this that for certain countries that is high, and with the increase in interest rate and the change in the pattern of global financial flows, access to financing become more challenging. Therefore, the first step is to maintain and to strengthen stability, because stability is the best way to have prosperity, because without stability, you don't have confidence, investment will not come, and even the anticipation of the population will be negative, okay? Here, each country is different. Certain number of countries need more support, and in certain cases, we also provide through our programs financing. But it's very important to preserve and to protect confidence. Preserving and protecting confidence requires a certain number of policies that brings confidence back. Two, you need more inclusion, starting from providing more opportunities, improving access to finance, which remains low in the region, access to talent, allow people to move from one country to another, from one job to another, reform the labor market, and access to infrastructure, especially technology. Those enablers are very important, but they're not enough. Allowing the private sector to grow is a must, which requires also to rethink the role of the state, the role of the state-owned entities, and allow entrepreneurs, startups to create the jobs that our countries need. Last but not least, there is a value in cooperation. This region has been suffering from lack of cooperation. And this is an opportunity to see how we can increase through cooperation what is in common and create larger markets and increase opportunities for people to invest, not only to serve their own market, but also to serve beyond. During the spring meetings 2 weeks ago, we had at the fund a session where 3 young start-uppers from the region shared their experience. One of them is from Morocco, and the 3 of them, when you listen to them, you see a bright future. This bright future requires a certain number of public policies to enable those talents to lead, and through their investment to create new jobs. Therefore, I would say here, the pillars are the same, but the policies are different because countries are different.
So we will move now to the sixth question. Over there.
Hello, I'm a third-year student in political sciences and international relations in UER. I would like to thank you for your intervention, and my question will be, with the Western global population getting older and with Africa being the cradle of youth and lands full of natural resources, will we see a global change of paradigm worldwide, with Africa and the MENA regions having more voice and weight in the global scale?
This is definitely a potential that we need collectively to work on materializing. The future of talents, the energy will come from the South, okay? And Africa has huge potential. Young population, markets that can still grow and grow fast. This requires multiple things to happen. Reforms to be implemented, and this is what countries need to do. Support to allow those reforms not only to achieve what reforms can achieve, but to have a multiplier effect. This is the role of institutions like us and others, is to amplify and support those reforms. 3 is to maintain the benefit of global cooperation for those two, i.e., if we go back, we can easily demonstrate that reducing barriers benefited the South. Increasing access to finance in the South also helped to accelerate growth, helped countries to be part of global value chains, helped also bridge the gap in knowledge and opportunities. We need to maintain this. And this is something that is currently at risk, because for this transformation, we need a lot of capital, especially the one that around climate, around technology. This capital needs to be made available to countries in the South. 2, it requires access to market. We should not close markets for those economies. And we need to accept that their transition, including in energy, would require more investment and more time. Therefore, we should militate collectively to keep the global system working and working better for those countries to have their potential of growth, of opportunities, and also to keep having access to the knowledge, technology, finance available to them. Therefore, it's an important challenge. And the fragmentation that we are living through is a risk that we need to address. And I hope during the meetings in Marrakesh, we will have the opportunity to discuss those. How to help countries who don't have financial resources to achieve the climate transition. How to maintain markets open for those new economies, and also how to maintain the capacity of those economies to benefit from the global system.
Once again, et maintenant je vais poser une question à monsieur El Khamouti. Donc la question était, pourquoi à votre avis le Maroc a été choisi comme pays d'accueil de cet événement?
Pourquoi peut-être il faut poser la question aux collègues de la Banque Mondiale et du FMI, mais moi je peux parler donc du dossier de candidature que le Maroc a préparé pour avoir cette organisation. Donc j'ai pas eu l'occasion de vous parler un peu de cet événement. Donc ça fait déjà 4 ans, 5 ans que le Maroc travaille sur cet événement. On avait présenté notre dossier de candidature en 2016. Bien évidemment, dans notre dossier de candidature, donc, on a essayé un peu de présenter donc, les atouts du Maroc à tous les niveaux, donc touristique, les projets d'infrastructure, l'ouverture, la tolérance, la stabilité au niveau de notre pays. Donc on avait avec nous donc, beaucoup de conquérants, donc d'autres pays. Et on a mis aussi en exergue donc, notre candidature, c'est aussi la candidature du continent africain, parce que la première et la seule fois que les assemblées ont été organisées donc, en Afrique, c'était en 1973. Et on a sensibilisé les deux institutions que le continent africain mérite un retour donc, de ces assemblées sur le continent africain 50 ans après. 50 ans après, donc beaucoup de changements au niveau de l'Afrique. Donc la jeunesse africaine, les projets, la modernité. Donc le continent africain donc, a le droit d'organiser une deuxième fois donc, ces assemblées. Donc en 2018, donc, ça a été officialisé, donc le fait que le Maroc organise les assemblées du groupe de la Banque Mondiale et du FMI. Initialement, donc, ces assemblées ont été prévues en 2021, mais à cause de la situation sanitaire, donc, ça a été reporté à 2 reprises, donc 2021 et 2022, puis 2022 à 2023.
Donc, merci beaucoup, monsieur. Et maintenant, je vais poser ma question à monsieur Abdelawi. Alors, monsieur, selon vous, quelle est l'implication de l'université dans l'organisation de cet événement?
Écoutez, notre implication, d'abord, je pense, quel est l'intérêt pour le groupement d'universités de participer à un tel événement? Je pense que c'est très important. Il y a aujourd'hui 5 universités marocaines. Il y a à peu près 500 ou 600 étudiants qui vont accueillir 10 à 12 000 participants au congrès de Marrakech. Je ne sais pas si vous, les jeunes, vous prenez conscience de l'importance de cette manifestation, mais soyez conscients que c'est quand même exceptionnel. Et c'est Khermoudi vient de rappeler qu'il y a 50 ans, depuis 50 ans, c'est pas venu en Afrique. Donc la dernière fois que ça a été organisé sur notre continent, c'est il y a 50 ans. Recevoir 10 à 12 000 participants de pratiquement tous les pays du monde, 190 pays d'après ce que j'ai vu, c'est quand même un événement d'ordre mondial et vous devez prendre conscience de l'importance de cet événement, de la chance que vous avez d'accueillir ces gens-là, et ce sera certainement une expérience importante pour vous et valorisante même dans votre carrière, même dans votre curriculum vitae une fois que vous aurez fini vos études. Nous, Université internationale de Rabat, faisons partie du groupement universitaire qui a été retenu. Et encore une fois, je remercie le FMI, je remercie le ministère de l'économie et des finances de nous avoir impliqués. Et donc nous, mobilisons nos étudiants, c'est quand même important. Nous sélectionnons, parce que vous avez été sélectionnés, il y a tout un processus de sélection pour que vous puissiez faire partie des personnes qui vont participer et accueillir les invités du Maroc. 2, nous allons vous former. Donc nous avons été sollicités par le ministère de l'économie et des finances pour déployer un cycle de formation dont j'ai parlé tout à l'heure. Donc notre rôle, ce sera également de former ces jeunes. On déploiera tous les moyens pédagogiques pour que vous puissiez être à la hauteur de votre mission. Et encore une fois, vous serez les ambassadeurs du Maroc pendant quelques jours. Vous serez 500 ou 600 étudiants qui vont accueillir le monde, la crème des crèmes, vous avez dit, c'est ça, du monde de la finance. Et c'est quand même important pour notre pays. J'ai aucun doute que ce sera un succès parce que on a déjà eu l'occasion de participer à des événements de cette ampleur. on a participé à la COP 22. Beaucoup de vos prédécesseurs, chers étudiants, ont participé à la COP 22 qui s'est tenue également à Marrakech. Avant la COP 22, on avait participé au Congrès mondial des droits de l'homme qui avait eu lieu également à Marrakech et beaucoup d'étudiants avaient été mobilisés pour accueillir les participants. Et puis, j'ai aucune crainte, le Maroc a l'habitude, a l'expérience d'accueillir des événements de cette ampleur-là. Tout à l'heure, en vous écoutant, je me suis rappelé qu'il y a pratiquement 30 ans, le Maroc, 94 je crois, a accueilli à Marrakech encore. Prochaine fois, il faut peut-être changer un peu. Il y a d'autres villes au Maroc, pas que Marrakech. Mais Marrakech a accueilli en 1994 le GATT qui a donné par la suite naissance à l'Organisation mondiale du commerce. Et donc, c'est des événements d'une certaine taille. Le Maroc est connu et reconnu au niveau international pour ses capacités à organiser ce genre de manifestations. Et nous, humblement et très modestement, nous allons vous accompagner, vous former, vous encadrer même durant l'événement. Un certain nombre d'enseignants, de cadres de l'université seront présents pour vous accompagner dans cette belle expérience que vous aurez à vivre. Donc voilà, et nous sommes, encore une fois, je le répète, nous sommes aujourd'hui dans les locaux de l'Université internationale de Rabat. On aurait pu être dans les locaux de l'Université Mohamed V, ou on aurait pu être à Ifran, à l'Université Al-Akhawaïn, ou à Ben Guerir, à l'Université Mohamed VI. Pour moi, c'est l'université marocaine dans toute sa diversité qui est représentée, et c'est fondamental. Et puis pour vous, chers étudiants, créer des liens entre vous, entre différentes universités, parce que c'est comme ça aussi que se constitue le réseau. Et vous savez plus que nous, qui sommes déjà la old school, vous savez beaucoup plus que nous quelle est l'importance du réseau dans votre future carrière professionnelle. Voilà ce qu'on pourra nous apporter, et je vous remercie.
So thank you so much. Unfortunately, our questions and answers from the audience will now end. I would like to thank you once again, dear representatives, for all your responses. They were very rich, fruitful, and interesting. And I am sure that all the students here with us today have learned and acquired the maximum of knowledge concerning this event. So before ending this conference, we will be watching a short video of Morocco and Marrakech, who is the host city of the World Bank Group and the IMF for the 2023 annual meetings. Thank you so much for this video. This truly shows that Morocco truly has all the capacities and resources to host such an event and also tackle global economic problems all around the world. So before ending this conference, I would like to give a final word to Mr. Azour, if you have a little ending speech for our beloved students here with us today.
Well, thank you very much again for this kind invitation. I still recall our last meeting in February 2020. What a journey since. We have kept the resolve to have those annual meetings. It's not only an event, and this is something that I would like to stress, that the authorities worked not only to make sure that the best conditions are set for the annual meetings to receive all these invitees, but also Morocco wanted to use those events for more than that. There is a scientific committee that has worked on a certain number of themes that Morocco wants to promote in the context of the annual meetings, which is very important. I would encourage you to get more information on that. Morocco also wanted to showcase the young generation in those annual meetings, and this is your role is to be the image of Morocco, of the future of Morocco. And three, I think what Morocco has set as priorities are gradually becoming the priorities of the global community, is how to, through dialogue, to achieve common goals, how to reduce the tension that is growing in the world, and how to promote certain number of human values that we all in our work, although we work on economic and financial issues, we work with a purpose, and the purpose is how to create the support for those human values. And I'm happy to see that Morocco has decided to put those human values at the center of the annual meetings and to attract and to focus the leaders of the world on those issues. And this is something that I think it's a job that is very well done. Thank you very much.
So I would like to thank you once again, Mr. Azour, Mr. Khamouchi, and Mr. Abdullawi, for taking some time out of your day and coming with us today for such an important event. It has been my pleasure being your moderator for today, and I would like to invite you to a little cocktail that will be just outside the auditorium. Thank you so much.